Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright. It is a Tuesday. We should let the people at home know all three of us got a haircut before the show today. Just wanted to make sure.
You did?
That I got a haircut too. Could you notice?
Wow.
Inch and a half. That's what Freddie says. But because I watched you boys getting your hair buzzed off, I figured why not join the club. What's up, Cece? You love it.
Yeah. I applaud you. I'm going to give you a preemptive fist bump because there were two jokes that you self-censored in the first 45 seconds. I plucked them right from your brain. I laughed internally.
I didn't.
So it landed for me, and now we can go do the television show.
You want to do a television show?
Yeah, you got the
Absolutely.
bosses watching and listening, and one down in the control room. So let's do this.
100%.
All right, all
Today's
right.
not the day to get fired.
Two games into the NBA Finals,
Maybe
boys.
reprimanded, but not fired.
And I'm not sure anyone is saying to themselves, you know what the Warriors need? The Warriors need yet another weapon. But that's what they'll be getting. Warriors forward Andre Iguodala may be back in the fold soon. Hasn't played since Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals. He reportedly hasn't experienced any pain over the last few days and plans to return at some point during the series. He's having a pretty good time there, not playing, though. But, Cece, what does this mean for the NBA Finals, for the Warriors, should Iggy come back?
Well, for one, it could be something very, very positive, but I believe in game number 3 on Wednesday night, we've seen this, the momentum, I believe, will come back to the Cavs. So if you do, even though Iggy has been there, as long as some of the players that we've seen on the roster, there's still an adjustment period. There's an adjustment, not playing basketball, but the speed for which this is the NBA Finals. Now, he is a former MVP. Can he do things that they miss as far as a wing defender? Can he switch all 5 positions the way they're doing? Because sometimes they have their guards guarding the center for the Cavs. So he can do all those things. Yes, but I just believe there will be an adjustment time in doing that. I believe it helps out the Warriors. You get a quality player, especially when you have the reserves struggling the way that they've struggled with the Cavs. We know that teams play better at home. So with the Golden State Warriors, I would love to have him as a sub. I wouldn't put him back in the starting lineup. You know, I wouldn't do that. But, man, to have him play 10 or 15 minutes, his overall composure, forget his physical. We know his skills as a defender to be able to play some minutes on LeBron James. But even when they were having some problems, Jordan Bell in game number 2, emotionally, Jordan Bell got a little tangled up with LeBron. He gave him some words of encouragement. Jordan Bell came right back the next play after the timeout and gets a steal. So when you have veteran players like that, you have an impact when you're on the bench, but you have a greater impact when you're in the game. Because when you're in the game, your feel for the game and his overall experience. And I expect him to be one of those role players who can play better in Cleveland than the role players they have now for the Warriors.
All right, that's, I think, a really good point.
It took me a long time.
But I think that his
minutes.
game travels as well as any of the potential subs, if not better than any of the potential subs.
What does that mean, his game travels?
It's not going to ebb and flow home and away the way we've seen certainly all the Cavs except for LeBron, and the way we've seen guys, the lesser players throughout these playoffs that rely on being.
And he's played with them so much with these players. He has a distinct role of what they want him to do. He doesn't have to get shots. You know he's going to be a good defender. You know he moves the ball well.
Kerr knows his role. He knows his role.
Yeah, and his teammates. Just like JaVale McGee, they inserted in game number 2.
Yeah.
The reason why he was successful was because the players believe in him. Now, if they believe in JaVale McGee, how much do they believe in Iguodala?
Yeah. All right, so first of all, my immediate reaction when I saw this, which is why I think it's funny, yesterday we spent a lot of time asking, were the Cavs over game 1? I realized that myself personally, as a viewer, I'm still not over game 1. Because as soon as I heard the Iguodala thing, what I thought about was, man, that charge call that got overturned in game 1 and the Kevin Love and 1, because we feel so differently about Iggy coming back if it's 1-1. If it's 1-1 and Iggy's coming back, we're like, man, the Warriors need him to come back. Like, they better hope he comes back. Because it's not 1-1, because it's 2-0, it's like, oh, just more of an embarrassment of riches for this team. However, while I think Iggy obviously is a valuable player on their team, and I think he is the 5th most important Warrior, and on a team with this much talent, it's tough to be the 5th most important guy when the 4 guys ahead of you are all going to go to the Hall of Fame. In this series, however, through 2 games, I don't think he would have, thus far, made that much of a difference, and here's why. Sean Livingston is getting more minutes than he otherwise would because Iggy's been out. Well, Sean Livingston has not yet missed a shot in these NBA Finals. Okay, who else? He's 11 for 11 in the NBA Finals, right?
Five last game.
JaVale McGee, they play the big lineup more than they would because Iggy's not out there. So what's JaVale McGee doing? Oh, JaVale McGee's shooting 89%. Kevon Looney, he's shooting 80%. Like Jordan Bell is getting minutes he wouldn't otherwise get. He's shooting 67%. So they've had to play big more than they otherwise would, but that big lineup's been super effective for them. The guy whose minutes he will take away is Nick Young. And while Nick Young has been terrible, Nick Young's made one shot in these NBA Finals, what Nick Young does give them that Iggy doesn't is spacing. Because you have to respect Nick Young's ability to shoot. So because those reserves have played way above their long-term capability, I don't think that it would have impacted the series through 2 games had Iggy been there. But I do think those guys were going to come back down to earth. Sean Livingston, Livingston, McGee, Kevon Looney, and Jordan Bell were not going to combine to shoot 86% in these playoffs or in these NBA Finals. Iggy coming in will help them, even though he's not really an offensive weapon.
But it's also why you didn't have to rush him back for game 1 and 2 at all. And he probably won't play in game 3, maybe for game 4 and then moving forward, because you already see what you have in place. So do you think, I know you said he transitions well from home and away. Do you think he'll help the Warriors? Is there anything the Warriors could use from him? A team that's already up 2-0, but on the road now facing a very hungry Cavs team?
Well, if you look at their game plan in game number 2 was put pressure on LeBron in the backcourt. And then Draymond Green was going to play more minutes on LeBron. So now you put Iggy in that. Okay, we'll put Durant on him. We'll switch to Draymond, and then we'll get 5 or 8 minutes from Iggy. So, man, that right there, that combination, those are the things that you need to be able to slow LeBron down. And if he's on the court with those same players, if you get into a pick and roll and they switch, they're very, very comfortable with their defensive assignments because of him. So you've won championships with him. Let's just imagine this. Let's play fantasy basketball. Imagine he was coming back to play for the Cavs.
He'd be he'd be their second or third best player by far.
Right. So
he would be so valuable.
Now you add that to the team that has more talent. He's in sync with this team. So it's just an embarrassment of riches like you talked about.
The other thing that I want to mention here is I do not think the Warriors had been I don't think they were being cautious not playing in the first 2 games. Steve Kerr said he cannot run without extreme physical pain. Until he can run without pain, I can't play him. So let's say the finals started 2 weeks ago and the Warriors were down 3-1 5 days ago, they still wouldn't have been able to play Iggy.
Yeah, but Kerr also said that he hasn't had any pain for the last couple of days. So they could have, the same way they put Clay out there with a high ankle sprain, you don't think they could have tried to put Iggy out there?
I do not think they could have played him in game 2.
Absolutely. There's no way you'd be able to hold him back. If he was able to run like Clay, he would be on the court. Now, you're talking about one of the real tough guys in the NBA. Like his whole persona, wherever he's been, he's a tough guy and he's going to play. So certain guys I might want to question, but this rare opportunity to get his 3rd ring, yes. And let's not lose fact that I believe it's very, very important, too, because I believe there's going to be a greater emphasis internally on winning game 3 for Golden State, because I know how much they cherish the first time they won their championship and clinching it in Cleveland. It was pretty special to them.
That's a great point. They talked about that. They talked about how it still smells like champagne when Steph went back the next year.
In the Cavs locker room.
In the Cavs locker room. And here's the one other thing about why if he could play, he would have played. And not that he could overrule Steve Kerr, but he would have gotten himself out there. No player on this Warriors team in this 4-year run has sacrificed more than Andre Iguodala. He was a fringe all-star caliber player in Philadelphia. He comes there. Kerr eventually says, you're coming off the bench. You are going to sacrifice all of your career numbers in order for the greater good. He won the Finals MVP, and if you listen to him after that championship, he still said he didn't love coming off the bench. He's like, Steve said it would work out. It worked out. Still don't think I'm a bench guy. So he sacrifices all year long to have an impact on the NBA Finals. Not being out there has killed him. So as soon as he is able to play, he will play. They won't be cautious with him.
And you only get so many of those precious moments. And as an athlete, you're trying to maximize those moments. Without the Warriors, who is Andre Iguodala? What's his career like?
Right. He's a nice player on losing teams.
And now with Durant being there, that they can win 3 out of 4, and him being one of a handful of players that can do that, very, very important to him. If he could have been out there under any type of condition, he would have been out there.
All right, news again, Iggy could be back at some point during the finals. Probably not, though, for Game 3. Coming up, LeBron is putting it all on himself to beat Golden State. Hear from him next on First Things First.
What, Champ?
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
Back here on First Things First, we'll get to LeBron James, but first we head to Canada, where the CFL preseason has started and where Brandon Burks just dances all over the Tiger Cats defense. This would be an Argonauts touchdown.
Oh, that made me reminisce to watching Dante Hall with my hometown Kansas City Chiefs.
This is where the expanded field comes in handy here. You can reverse field almost like Little League, but my man's got some speed. The CFL game, if you haven't watched, is pretty exciting. My son's played up there for 6 years now.
It is very exciting. When CC says the expanded field, wider as in addition to being longer.
Let's watch more of the CFL. Saskatchewan Roughriders wide receiver Naaman Roosevelt up high, catches the ball in traffic, CC.
Oh, nice catch, Naaman. I like him. He's a good kid. Now, they have one of the best wide receiving corps, the Saskatchewan. Naaman is one of their elite players.
This is the team your son plays for.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they got 4 top-flight guys on there.
Which was one of the reasons why they can use one of their best wide receivers, Duron Carter, play him a little defense.
Oh, yeah, he's going both ways.
Guys, back in the States, Florida State's Jesse Warren. Nice grab, heads-up play to turn 2 right here.
Our boss, Witt, tried to get us to put a different softball highlight in this yesterday. We vetoed it. We got this softball highlight on there, though. Now, man, these women's softball players are tough. Anyone that's ever tried to hit a fast-pitch softball, that is harder than you'd think. Now,
yes, it is.
CC, you're giving me a look. You're an elite. You're a top 1% of 1% athlete. I'm sure you could probably do it. For regular folks, that is a learned skill, man.
Okay, what percent did you say I'm in?
Top 1% of the 1%. That would be the top 0.01%.
Maybe as far as what people earn, I think it's a lot less than that.
No, I said athlete. I said athlete. You're in the top 1% of 1% athletes.
Okay,
it's easier for you.
We have more time to talk about it.
That being smart is a problem.
I like that unintentional pocket shaming you did there, though.
Back to the NBA Finals. The Cavs are down 2-0 as the series shifts back to Cleveland for Game 3 Wednesday night. Vegas has the Warriors favored on the road by 5.5 points. However, LeBron is still locked in. He doesn't care what Vegas thinks. Vegas. Here's what he had to say after Game 2.
I put our team in position to try to win a championship, to compete for a championship. And, it's my job to make sure that we're as focused, as laser focused as possible, do my job, and continue to instill confidence into my teammates until the last horn sounds. So, that's my job. That's my responsibility. That's my obligation, and I need to continue to do that, which I will.
This isn't the first we've heard LeBron say it. I'm sure this is not the first time he's been asked. There's a lot riding on this, and there's a lot on LeBron's shoulders. Do you think it's on him, Nick? Is it his responsibility, his job?
I mean, if it is, then every single thing involved in the team is his job. We already know he gets criticized for their cap situation because evidently he signed those guys to contracts. We already know that he is expected to literally do more than any player has ever done for their team at this stage of the playoffs. He's accounting for a higher percentage of his team's points, rebounds, and assists than any player ever to make an NBA Finals. So we know from the front office we say it's his job. On the court, we say it's his job. So evidently now it's also his job. That's the coach's job. They're getting his guys ready, getting his guys amped up, getting his guys in the right frame of mind is your coaching staff's job. So if that's his job as well, then he's wearing all the hats in the organization except for team owner, which is a hat one day when he's done playing he actually wants to wear. I think there is a difference between the traditional role of best player on a team, leader on a team, being a guy that you rally around, and a guy who also has to do the motivational, almost emotional shaman for the team to get everyone ready to go. That's individuals' own responsibility, and then, in my eyes, the coaching staff's responsibility as a whole, even if the best player on the team has a larger role than other people.
Yeah, I believe Ty Lue has a strong voice with the team LeBron has. He has a strong voice inside the organization. But there's no voice in Cleveland like LeBron. So it's not a matter, is it his job? This is what LeBron does. Cal Korver talks about LeBron has set the standard around here so high. If you get to practice an hour early, you are already an hour late because he's already been there for 2 hours. So he sets the tone for what the organization is going to be on a daily basis. Now, I've been fortunate that I've been around the Cavs. I was around the Heat, and I was around the Cavs the first time LeBron was there. I've been on the court, I've been courtside, and I've been in the locker room. LeBron is a phenomenal communicator. He is one of those type of people that when he says something, people listen. And he's so smart about basketball. So Ty Lue, based on his reputation and his overall strengths, I believe there's a good balance in what he does and what LeBron James is. LeBron's got to be the motivator because he's gifted as a speaker. He understands the game on a different level, and his overall commitment that, yeah, it's not his job to do, but it's in his gifting to do. So not only his basketball ability as a communicator and what he knows about the game. What is he supposed to do? Keep it to himself? So on paper, no, that's not what a great player is supposed to do, but different skill sets for different players, all right? I don't believe that LeBron and Steph Curry have the same skill set. They have Draymond, who sets a certain amount of edge and kind of talks to the team. LeBron doesn't have that, and he has the skill set, so people might think it's too much, but I know LeBron is more than capable of doing that.
But here's the flip side to it, though, that I'm going to point at a very specific moment in the Cavs season where it could have gone sideways, where I could have been the most wrong person in the world, because they could have lost in the first round. Game 4 against the Indiana Pacers. The Cavs are trailing in that game. They're trailing in the series 2-1. And Kyle Korver makes back-to-back outstanding plays. And guess who that lifted up? That lifted up LeBron. That allowed LeBron to say, okay, we've got a path here. Lifted him up to play at a super high level the next 2 games, which then ended up carrying them to go to the NBA Finals or at least get to the next round, sweep the Raptors. There is a responsibility on the oldest team in the league, the highest paid team in the league, for other guys to say, you know what, not only am I going to be responsible for my own performance, I'm going to do something that inspires him. Because his play on the court alone, if the guy was a mute, should be somewhat inspirational by the level at which he plays. And so could Kevin Love do that? Could 37-year-old Kyle Korver do that? Could 14-year vet J.R. Smith do that? I mean, they should be able to do that.
Of course, but I think this comes down to what the other guys on the team are going to listen to, what the other guys on the team are motivated by, what's going to push the other guys on the team. I don't know if Kyle Korver making a 3 or 2, and I totally understand your point, is all of a sudden going to get J.R. Smith to be like, all right, yeah, Kyle Korver made that 3. But I think LeBron, arguably one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and if we all sit here and appreciate it, you have to believe there's some semblance of the rest of that team that says we're playing in one of the greatest times in history. Yes, I think it's his responsibility, but I think he welcomes that responsibility. The same way, CC, you talk about how it's not in Kevin Durant's DNA to do that. It is in LeBron James's DNA to want to be a leader. Yes, on the court, but you don't think off the court, too?
This is the problem, though, because at the end of the day, everyone's a professional. Like, we can say what we want. I come in the morning, you guys are here, stuff gets done. I try to get you guys pumped up, but at the end of the day, you guys got to do a job. I can't do your job for you. Now, I'll try to do my best. I'll try to fill people out for what they need. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do well. And it's absent of you doing your job and Nick doing his job. Because when you're professional in professional sports, yes, LeBron is gifted. But sometimes you get to a point where you just can't keep leaning on LeBron. When you have a personal response, Kevin Love, can you get 20 and 15? Cal Corver, can you get 9? JR, can you get in double figures? I mean, my God, like, we've dropped our standards for everyone. So I'm with Nick. I understand that. When you're in competitive situation, Belichick says it. You say you like it. Everyone do your job.
And
if the Cavs just had a little bit of that.
That's my thing, is I understand your point, which is LeBron on the court has to be the inspirational force through his play, and I think to a degree he is, but that can also work in the other direction. He can be so great on the court, guys can relax almost a little bit, like, oh, he's got this. Like, we've got the best guy, he's got this. And off the court, he can be that little extra. The last words you hear leaving the locker room can be from LeBron. I understand that part of it. But the coaching staff getting guys in the right mental frame of mind, and you used the example I was going to use. Like, you're the most experienced, you're the best player on our team here. But it is, if I do poorly, it is not your fault. And by the way, if I do poorly, it is not your responsibility. It's nice if you do it, but it's not your responsibility to fix it. It's our bosses. It's the people you don't see on the show, the producers. So, like, we all try to pick each other up, but our own performance is our own responsibility. And after that, it's the people whose jobs, in my eyes, were hired to coach our performance. Like, I just think we can't say it's LeBron's job to do everything for everybody.
So, like, maybe a general manager's job. It could be a general manager's job.
It's all pieced up. General manager, coach. Yeah.
Speaking of which, are the Sixers blowing their chance at signing LeBron this season? Is there a general manager to blame for that? That's next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we are going viral. Before last season, Browns head coach Hugh Jackson promised to jump into Lake Erie if his team went 0-16. Well, they did, and now he has fulfilled his promise. Jackson raised $30,000 for his foundation in the process. CC, does this excuse the Browns' 0-16 season? A little cold dip?
Excuse it? No, that's another loss. Hold that L, man.
And maybe it would excuse it a little bit if he had the guts to do it in January, right when the year ended. He waits till June, water's nice and warm.
Man, what's that apparatus? He had like I think he had like some rubber suit up under his shirt and everything.
Oh,
you see that?
Wearing a wetsuit.
Yeah, trying to keep himself warm.
Oh.
They can't even jump in the lake,
Jenna,
right?
I'm guessing, I don't know this.
100%.
You've done the polar plunge?
I've done a polar plunge up in Buffalo.
I figured as much.
Of course.
That seems right up your alley.
Yep.
I don't really know what the polar
why
plunge
do people do that? Because I had a goal. I was in Minnesota 12 years. I had a goal. I saw some people ice fishing. I said, man, I got a goal. I was riding around. The guy's like, man, I know you like to fish. I said, I got to go. I'm going to leave Minnesota without ever doing that. Because I know it's not fun. It's like, oh, it's amazing. You got a little, man, we got a little house we put over the ice and everything, TV, everything.
None of it.
No.
No.
I'm not in the cold.
If our producers before 9:30 can get video of Jenna's polar plunge.
You guys didn't do the ice.
And I know why I don't like the cold, Nick, because you know where I'm from and everything.
Exactly, yes, your lineage.
All right, here we go. Time for some stories to start your morning. Another episode of As the World Turns with the Sixers, though I'm more of a Days girl. The team has hired a law firm to investigate their general manager's connection to burner Twitter accounts. Brian Colangelo has admitted to one of the accounts. Nick, do the Sixers have to fire Brian Colangelo? Is that the responsibility now?
The moment it gets to where LeBron James is joking about it at press conferences in reference to, wait, are we sure that was his Twitter account when he was asked about Dan Gilbert tweeting? Yeah. I mean, this is drawn on way too long. It absolutely will hurt your pursuit of free agents if he's still your GM. Mm-hmm. So I'd say they have until the end of the finals. But once the season's over, I think they're in a rough spot if he's still their GM.
Yeah, the investigation. I thought, especially with the electronics, there are too many fingerprints involved. I thought that he would be incriminated himself. Mm-hmm. Man, a family member. It's a bad look. It's hard to believe he was not involved.
All right, moving on to the NFL, some good news out of Foxborough. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski are going to report to mandatory minicamp after both skipped voluntary OTAs. Keyword there being mandatory. CeCe, how important is it for the Pats to have Brady and Gronk there?
Man, it's more important to have Tom Brady there. Like, Gronk is an unbelievable player, but Tom Brady changes this franchise. He makes so many players around him better. Now, Gronk, does have the ability because he's a great end-of-the-line blocker. But Brady's effect on this roster is like only one greater is Belichick.
And I know we talk about a quarterback-wide receiver combo getting on the same page. How about Brady learning to play with a brand-new left tackle? How about Brady learning what it's like to not have Nate Solder, who he's had for the last decade? I know in minicamp, it's not like they're going to hit Brady, but he's going to be able to see what some of the limitations are. So, yeah, it's very important he's there.
Over the weekend, Packers linebacker Clay Matthews suffered a broken nose in a charity softball game. He said he'll need surgery as soon as the swelling goes down. His coach, Mike McCarthy, joked that Clay needs to work on his offhand mitt side on the release of the ball. All joking aside, that hurt. CC, should teams try to limit players' activities in the offseason, or was this a total fluke?
No, you got to. I used to have it in my contract where I was limited as far as the things that I could do. They knew I loved playing basketball. But, yes, you're paying them too much money in a short window in their life. I've told them all the time, man, give up all that stuff while you're playing because you're going to have the rest of your life to be able to do all the things that you enjoy. But it's hard, even when people have restriction in their contract, because they're so young and they're such high achievers, they don't really think they can get hurt. That was very dangerous.
I would say he's playing in a charity softball game, the only position on the field where injury he's playing the highest risk of injury position, pitcher, right? You're not going to get a hot shot down third baseline playing charity softball. Like, that's the only spot where this could happen. I'll say this. He's lucky it was his nose, not his eye socket. Like, the eye socket could have.
Right?
I feel for Clay, though. That looked brutal.
All right, finally.
Even from a guy who could use a broken nose, maybe.
It's a good-looking guy.
No, me. I'm talking about me.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It was him.
Oh, thanks, Jenna.
Finally. I'm joking.
No, go ahead. Jenna's on tape delay.
Finally, we have Odell Beckham Jr. He was a no-show at yesterday's organized team activities, but the Giants continue to hold out hope their star receiver will soon take the field. New head coach Pat Shurmur told reporters that Beckham will, quote, possibly be medically cleared for next week's minicamp. Chris, how important of a step would this be for OBJ after missing almost all of last season?
It's not that big of a deal. Like, he's in the injury protocol that we have a lot of players in. The training staff, the doctors, they're going to release him at a certain point. He hasn't had any setbacks thus far. So, no, it's not that big a deal. This is what we go through in the offseason. When you have surgery, these are going to be a window of rehab. Now, when do you get him back on the field as far as full activity? So, no, I'm not surprised he hadn't been released yet. It's not that important. It's more important that he's around Pat Shurmur and this offense to kind of understand what they're trying to do. It's a switch that he's got to make. It's his third switch. He came in under a different offensive coordinator. They went last year, or 2 years ago, the offensive coordinator was named the head coach, which they also changed the offense a little more. But now with Pat, it'll be a totally new offense. So just understand that terminology and what's his role inside, outside. Am I going to play Z? Am I going to play X? How much am I going to play in the slot? Those things are more important than him getting on the field.
I think it's very important when we discuss athletes and injuries to always look back to right when after they had the surgery or once the timeline was released, what their projected expected steps and timeline were, and then react accordingly. And by that, I mean, the reason I say that is this. When it comes to Andrew Luck or Odell Beckham, until they are behind the schedule they had, I will not be concerned about it. If they had said, we expect OBJ to be a full participant in OTAs, then I'd be like, oh, well, either something didn't go as well as they had hoped, there was a setback, something like that. That is not the case. So as long as when the timeline was released, they said he will definitely be full go for the season, and we don't expect him to be a full participant in OTAs. Well, we're just on that same timeline. Same with Andrew Luck. Like, he's not going to be throwing the football until the end of June, the end of July, beginning of regulation football, whatever it was. So until he misses a checkpoint, I won't be concerned. Same with Odell.
When we talk about quarterbacks having missed an entire season, like Andrew Luck, a season and a half, whatever it is, timing is so key when you come back just to get, the mechanics, but getting your rhythm back, the timing is so key. What's the timing like for a wide receiver? How much different is that? Is it more of a learning curve, less of a learning curve, having missed almost all last season?
Well, there is no learning curve because the wide receiver, he has a diagram. It's called the passing tree. So all the routes are on the passing tree. Now, that's not going to change. So if I want the wide receiver to run a 12-yard curl, he's going to run a 12-yard curl regardless of who the wide receiver is. The difference between the quarterbacks is every route and every receiver has their own personality and their own body rhythm for which they're going to run the route. Some of them are faster and some of them are slower. And in some of them, they throw the quarterback off. So the quarterback, every wide receiver, they're not robots. So they're 12-yard. If I have 5 wide receivers and I call a 12-yard curl, every curl is going to be different. The quarterback's got to be able to see it and feel what their rhythm is. So a wide receiver, we don't have to change. The quarterback is changing based on the talent. Coaches teach this. They say know your personnel. Know the guy you're throwing to. Know his strong suit. Know what he can do and what he can't do.
So it's on Eli.
This is a much bigger deal, even if it's not a huge deal. This would be a much bigger deal if with the number 2 pick of the draft, the Giants had selected Sam Darnold. And the discussion was, is he going to be their starter this year?
Yes.
Because he doesn't have the history with Odell. Every pass Odell has caught in his NFL career has come from Eli Manning. So, like, he and Eli already have a great rapport. And assuming Odell is the same athlete, and given the fact that it was a broken bone and not a torn ligament or Achilles, he will be the same athlete when he comes back. They should be able to pick up right where they left off.
All right, let's move on to what happens when sports and politics mix. President Trump canceled the Philadelphia Eagles' White House visit yesterday. According to the New York Times, less than 10 members of the Super Bowl champion team were planning to attend. The president tweeted, quote, "Unfortunately, only a small number of players decided to come and we canceled the event." Nick, what's your reaction to all of this?
It's highly unfortunate. It's unnecessary. And it, to me, is evidence that the NFL, in their attempt to appease the president with the updated policy on the national anthem, that there was not going to be any appeasing the president on this issue. The president told Jerry Jones, reportedly, I think also according to the New York Times, that he views this as a winning issue, that the more often he can talk about the football players, particularly black football players in the national anthem, that it boosts him, it elevates him. And so he's going to use it to his advantage, even if, as in this case with the full tweet, I think he's using some misinformation. The audience should know the number of Philadelphia Eagles who kneeled during the regular season, who kneeled during the playoffs, who stayed in the locker room during the regular season, who stayed in the locker room during the playoffs, was precisely 0. Not a single Philadelphia Eagle did that. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles did have a player donate his entire salary to charity.
Yeah, Chris
That's
Long.
friend of ours, Chris Long, Howie Long's son. That is, they did have a player who has worked with police forces, district attorneys, and politicians, up to and including the United States Congress, in trying to get prison reform and criminal justice reform. That's my friend Malcolm Jenkins. They have had guys go above and beyond their calling as American citizens to try to improve their communities. But they had no one kneel. They had no one stay in the locker room, and yet they're uninvited all the same.
Yeah, the kind of irony to it is last year, the Patriots, we knew several of the Patriots weren't going to be there. Now, we knew pretty much the whole team, the Eagles, weren't going to be there. But last year with the Patriots, Kraft being a contributor to the campaign of the president.
Right, Brady being a friend.
They didn't cancel it. Tom Brady didn't go, but they didn't cancel it. Now, we saw last year, Golden State Warriors. We know at Golden State, Steve Kerr, their organization, the things that they've said. So theirs was canceled. I wasn't expecting the Eagles not to be canceled. Like, this is what I expect. But the thing about it is, I thought the White House belonged to the people. I've been to the White House a number of times. I was there in 2015 with the president in Ohio State. I believe it's one of the great traditions that we've had in sports. If you are a champion, you're going to go to the White House. Now, I just believe for all the people that were robbed of that once in a lifetime, eventually they should be able to get that type of chance. All right? That's not a house that is owned by one person. So it belongs to the people. The people voted for a person. So now he's going to rescind all that. So I'm not surprised. I'm glad the Eagles, the stance that they made, because it's real. When you look at Sterling Brown and the police officer in the video, they're talking about getting overtime. They brutalized this guy, tased this guy. Exactly what the guys who they did take a knee for the national anthem. You know, I talked to Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend 2 days ago, and she talked about, yeah, man, this is right at the forefront. This is what Colin was talking about. So I'm glad for the Eagles. I'm glad for Jeffrey Lowery that he stood up and supported his team. I'm glad for the mayor of Philadelphia that he supports the organization that does great things in the community where he is. So not surprised at all.
I would really like, and Chris, you know Commissioner Goodell, you know a lot of the people at 345 Park Avenue. I think that's the address, 345 Park Avenue. I would really like to see the NFL try to go on the offensive to a degree on the PR side of this. There is maybe no league, no group of people in this country that, in my eyes, and this is why to me this is a bit of a personal issue, that are more of an embodiment of what I perceive the American dream to be than some of these guys in pro sports and in the NFL. You know, I have a very interesting take on the American dream, like what it is and who to me reminds me of it. But guys who very often come from very little, who sacrifice enormous amounts of their childhood to work, to try to hone a craft, to try to go in a competitive field, to try to become that 1% of 1% and reach the top, and then do not forget where they came from. Do not forget their communities. Do not forget the people on the way up and try to elevate those communities. That is supposed to be the beautiful thing about this country, unlike many others, where you have that opportunity and that when you do reach those goals, you have the obligation to help. To me, that's what true patriotism is. That is what paying forward what this country has done for you is about. And I don't know of a team that embodies that more than the Eagles. What Malcolm Jenkins has done, he's by the way, broken off from Cap somewhat. Cap and Malcolm Jenkins have difference of opinions on how to handle this. Malcolm has gone to the owners about supporting the communities, gone to the U.S. Congress. Chris Long played for free this year. Free. Like, you can say, oh, it's tax write-off. It's not a tax write-off when you get $0 of taxable income because you played for free. It is so disappointing to me because there are so many more things that represent true patriotism in my eyes.
It's hard to be disappointed when you're not surprised, though.
It was a day ahead of time. That's why it surprised me. I thought it was going to be canceled. It would have been canceled longer ago. But I mean, maybe you saw this one coming. I didn't. Go ahead.
Was it canceled because President Trump was offended because he thought perhaps, and I was surprised to know that I didn't realize that no Philadelphia Eagles knelt this season, or because of appearances and how important they are to him, and he felt, well, 10 people are going to show up. It's going to make this all look bad.
He came up with his scenario that as a professional team, if they don't pass the Patriot equation, he said he's got this kind of formula for if you're a Patriot. So I don't know how he got it, how he created it, because in my rights as a U.S. citizen, no one's informed me that there was some type of, if you do this, 2 scoops of sugar, 1 cup of flour, it makes you a patriot, where my experience in America has been totally different than yours, his, or anyone else's. So he can't tell me how I feel. Like, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into that. I can't pretend to get in the president's mind on this. What I can say is this. There are millions of Americans waking up this morning who believe that dozens of Philadelphia Eagles knelt during the national anthem. It didn't happen. There are millions of Americans waking up this morning that believe there were dozens of Philadelphia Eagles who were actively disrespecting the flag or staying in the locker room during the national anthem. It didn't happen. And there are millions of Americans who really like to see powerful people put their thumb on powerful black athletes. That's a story as old as pro sports in America. And that's why I believe the president has said this is a winning issue for me, and that's why this isn't going to go away. No matter how much the NFL tries to appease the president, this is not going away because there's midterm elections coming up, and there is the belief that this is a winning issue for him, and so we just have to deal with it.
All right, we're going to take a break. Much more First Things First right after this. Welcome back to First Things First. Former NFL coach Chuck Pagano is here with us again today.
Good to see you, Chuck.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me back.
Of course.
Great-looking jacket there, Coach.
It is.
Appreciate it.
Coach, you got some threads.
Just trying to keep up.
No, Coach. You came up since being an assistant coach. I'm going to tell you. You got that. You stepped it up.
All right, Coach, we've spent many a morning talking about Andrew Luck, your former quarterback, and the football he hasn't played in a long while. All reports pointing to him being ready to go, though, for the start of this season for the Colts. Recently, news surfaced that Luck plans to be throwing by training camp. So, Coach, I ask you this. What are reasonable expectations for Andrew Luck this season?
Great question, Jenna.
Super Bowl MVP.
Everybody.
Right.
No, absolutely. I think Andrew's expectations are that.
Yeah.
He wants to get out there. We talked about it yesterday more than anybody else. But I think you got to temper everything. And I think it's the what if, you know, and the big if is the injury. And when is he going to get back out on the field? When is he going to actually start throwing the football again? He's working on his fundamentals. He's working on his techniques. He's working on his footwork, taking snaps under center, doing all that stuff. But until he actually starts throwing the football.
In a game or just throwing?
Just throwing a football. You know, and is that going to be, because they're saying, hey, okay, he's going to be ready for training camp to start throwing the football. But to me, I would be hopeful, and my expectations were that, you know, you start throwing that football sometime after OTAs, and you start getting with the receiver. Like a healthy quarterback, he's going to take his receivers like Andrew in the past. He'd go to Florida. He'd fly everybody to Florida. They'd meet T.Y. down there, and they'd go to the University of Miami or whatever, and they'd spend 3 days throwing. Or he'd go to California, he'd take them all to Stanford and do the same thing. So there was a lot going on because you can't have any contact as a coach with those players and the downtime after OTAs and until training camp starts. So, again, till he starts throwing, he gets on the football field, they're going to be cautious with him. Obviously, Andrew's going to do the right thing. And he talked about, hey, I've got to follow every step and do the right thing and stick to the process.
Yeah.
We love saying that.
Now, Coach, Andrew said that he was one of the problems. Now, I'm not going to get into misdiagnosed and what was the injury. All that we can't change. But Andrew, I thought he gave us a gem. He said, I was part of the problem. He tried to force some of...
Said he skipped steps.
Skip steps in the rehab. Now, no one knows, besides his dad and a few other people, Andrew Luck like yourself. So not getting all these reps, how would it affect Andrew? Because, I mean, he's a workaholic. Now, he's a workhorse. This dude's a big, scrapping guy. How does that affect him mentally, knowing that he can't do what he wants to do before that time? You said, I'm like you. I would much rather be throwing before training camp because you're missing thousands of great reps.
Yeah, but again, I think they're going to, again, you don't want to push it. And he probably started to feel good last year, and maybe you start pressing a little bit. Anybody who's going through a rehab, whether it's a knee, an Achilles, whatever, a shoulder, you probably start feeling good, and you push things and you have a setback. Barring no setbacks, and he starts throwing, and then he gets on the field, then they got to decide, okay, how much are we going to play him in preseason? Because training camp is not like old training camp. It's not 6 weeks. It's not 2-a-days. It isn't pads in the morning and pads in the afternoon, what you experience. Now I call it Camp Cupcake.
Yes. Short.
It isn't. It's short and sweet, and it's don't come in there and try to get in shape, because that's not what it's all about anymore. You better come in ready to roll. And then he's got to get in football shape. He's in shape right now physically, running, lifting weights, and doing those things, but it's different.
What does football shape mean for a quarterback? Because for a quarterback, I feel like I understand for a wide receiver or a corner doing all the running. For a quarterback, what's football shape?
It's the same thing. You still got to put the helmet on. You got to put the shoulder pads on. Now, they get the red jersey, and they get protected, and you don't ever get near them, and you don't touch them. You know, you're screaming at the defensive linemen all the time, and everybody in the blitz and linebackers to stay away from the quarterback and all those type of things. But you still got to get in football shape. You still got to take snaps. You got to move past 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, go through all that stuff. And so, again, the expectations. I know what the fans. Hey, day one, I want to see him as our starter.
Sure.
You know, and he's Andrew Luck of old, but it's going to take some time. Fundamentals, technique, you know, physically he's going to be okay. He's got to learn how to take some hits again and see if he holds up that way. Confidence. You know, is he throwing it with the same velocity? Is the accuracy the same? Is the timing and the chemistry? That's all got to take place, and it's got to happen in a hurry during training camp leading up to the regular season.
Well, what's the biggest focus for the training staff now? Is it going to be arm strength? Is it going to be confidence? Or is it going to be relationship with receivers that he hasn't thrown to yet?
I think, again, great question, Jenna. I think it's all the above, you know, and then making sure that they don't, you know, speed the process up too fast and they have a setback. As long as he doesn't have a setback and he continues to gain confidence physically and mentally and in that arm, and he starts feeling good, and it's better, you know, day 2, day 3, day 4, and there's no setbacks, then I fully expect him to be the old Andrew of old.
All right, so let's just assume for a moment that Andrew Luck becomes fully healthy, that he is the Andrew of old. Here's one thing we've never seen, and this was through no fault of yours because you were the head coach, you were not the team architect, you're not the general manager, but we've never seen Andrew Luck with what I would consider an A-level offensive line and a really good running game. Frank Gore is a hell of a player who seems ageless, but they've never had the excellent running game and certainly never had the excellent offensive line. In your opinion, if Andrew Luck were to ever get that, a good running game and a good offensive line, what type of offense does he architect? What type of player is he? Because we've never seen that version of him.
Oh, he's a Super Bowl MVP, and I take ownership, in all that stuff. I was there for 6 years, and we didn't do a good enough job of surrounding him and putting the right pieces in place. And part of that's injuries, and we make no excuses, believe me. But I take ownership of all that, being the head football coach. And, being the starting quarterback, when you win, they probably say too many nice things about you.
Right.
And when you lose, they probably say, you probably get too much, of the wrong stuff. Somewhere in the middle is where reality lies, but it's a team game. It's a team sport. And we know most of it falls on that guy. And he carried that franchise for as long as he could. And then too many hits, too many sacks, too many this, too many that, and finally fell out and gave out. And but he's going to be back, and I know he's going to play at a high level, barring no setback, anything like that. But you got to have a running game, you got to have a defense, you got to have an offensive line. Chris Ballard's done a great job. Chris Ballard did a great job, of supporting me last year and our staff. He did everything within his power to give us all the pieces necessary, going and getting Jacoby, when we needed a quarterback to get through that season. So he's doing the right thing. They're getting some linemen in there and those kind of things. But it's a team game, and you need all that stuff.
Coach, last question. You're still involved in football. You're not coaching football now. I still see you coaching football back on the sidelines in the NFL. The next star quarterback you get, I want you to learn from your 6 years with Andrew. Give me one thing that you would have done different to make sure what Mel Kiper said about that kid, to make sure that Mel was right. Give me one thing, Coach, that you would have done.
Well, I think you make sure that he's surrounded with all the right pieces, and I think we did the right thing, with Andrew, because Peyton the whole thing was blown up. We were power rankings. We were 32 in 2012, and weren't supposed to win 2 games.
You won 11.
And won 11, because of that guy, and he was the most NFL-ready quarterback to come out in the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it was, and so I have no regrets, on what we did and what we accomplished and what we did with him. But would I have taken the hits off of him? Absolutely.
Okay.
Would I have coached him harder earlier to say, hey, look, know when to say when. When the play's over, it's over. And get on the ground, throw the ball away, and don't take those egregious hits. He plays the position like a linebacker.
Yes.
Not anymore. And that's what makes him so special and makes him so great. But you can't do that. Andrew, you have to. One of the biggest abilities, we always talk about abilities, is availability. And when he missed 9 games in 2015, he'd be the first to tell you the biggest thing he learned was availability being number one. Coachability is huge, responsibility, all those other things, durability, but availability is number one.
Coach, will you stick around, come back a little later in the show?
Absolutely.
Join us? Good stuff. All right, coming up, let's get back to some basketball. Andre Iguodala is coming back, but do the Warriors even need the guy? That's where we're at with this Warriors team. That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. The guest with the most energy we've ever had on this television program, Brian Scalabrine, is here.
That was a star turn for you yesterday, bro.
It was not Chris Mannix?
No.
I heard rave reviews about
Yes,
Mannix.
and Mannix is incredible. Does not have more energy than you, my friend.
Oh, man.
Mannix is great. Mannix is doing it. He picked up a 3rd job to pay for all those hotel rooms he told people to book for Boston when they made the NBA Finals this year. So he's got to do some reagembursements.
He was all in on Boston.
All in. Was
Yeah,
our
you
first
were so
Mannix.
good yesterday. My wife was like, I need more of Scalabrine. I was like, what? When I came home, she was like,
You know I live in Boston, so my wife was saying I need more Scalabrine, too.
That's awesome.
We're not at that point where she's like telling me, get out of here and do some work.
okay, good for you.
All right, well, we got more Scalabrine. 2 games into the NBA Finals, and I'm not sure anyone's saying to themselves, you know what this Warriors team need? They need another weapon. but that's what they'll be getting. Warriors forward Andre Iguodala may be back in the fold soon. He hasn't played since Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals, reportedly hasn't experienced any pain over the last few days and plans to return at some point during the season. What do you think, Scal? Do the Warriors even need Iguodala on this team to help sweep Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants it to be easier, but if he doesn't play in Game 3, Cleveland wins that game. But Iguodala comes back. If he does play in Game 3, there could be a sweep. But I think that Cleveland is going to play, and he's everyone's going to be blown away by the difference that they make. But with Iggy there, that Hampton's 5, unstoppable, IQ off the charts, shooting off the charts. Guys get out in the open court, switchability, defensive versatility. They might actually sweep if he comes back for Game 3, but I'm not hearing he is.
Here's the only I don't think he'll be back for Game 3 either, but it's on the board. But whenever he comes back, here's the only reason why I think the impact will be muted to a degree. He's going to be taking minutes from someone, right?
Yeah, Kayvon Looney,
right.
JaVale McGee.
Right, so those two guys are shooting a combined 89% in the playoffs.
Sure.
Sean Livingston shooting 100, not in the playoffs, in the finals, pardon me. Sean Livingston hasn't missed a shot in the finals. Also what he'll do when he comes back. You won't have to play Draymond and KD and Clay quite as many minutes. Those guys are playing extraordinary. So the point that I'm making is he is important that he comes back because particularly those role players were not going to keep up their level of play. But I don't think he would have made a big impact on the first 2 games. I don't think. What? You
prisoner of the moment. George Hill makes that free throw. We're all sitting here like, man, they need Iguodala back.
Yes.
I mean, like, we look at it as 2-0, and we're basing it off of the dominating performance in Game 2. But if that Game 1, come on, man, the Cavs should have won that. And when you watch in the Houston series and you watch Game 1, you're like, man, they need Iguodala. You can't tell me that you don't think that they need him out there from the Houston series when he's out and Game 1.
I think that the Houston series, the point I'm making is this. In the Houston series, those role players didn't play as well. When Iguodala's not out there, they play big more often than they would when he is out there because they can't play the Hampton style, right?
Sure.
And so in this series, JaVale McGee, Kayvon Looney, Jordan Bell have all been really good.
They've been at home.
What?
They've been at home. Right, they have not hit the road yet.
I understand that, but even if Iguodala was there, they would have still been at home.
Sean Livingston, he created 2 shots. He had one off the bounce, about a 12-footer. He had a reverse layup in transition. The rest of them were, man, they were slipping the screen dunks. You know, so I know you have the stats that they've made all these shots, but anyone in that role would have dunked the basketball. So I'm with you on that as far as the role players will play better at home. Iggy, what he does can't be replaced. And we weren't that far removed from what if they lose the Houston series? Give me 1, 2, and 3 the reasons why. Iggy would have been one of those.
Iggy, and Chris Paul was better than we thought he was going to be.
Well, listen, I agree with the idea that in the Houston series, he would have been highly valuable.
Game 1, he wouldn't have been?
LeBron
had 51. He did whatever he wanted.
And in the series that Iggy won his finals MVP, LeBron averaged 36, 13, and 9.
But he shot 39% from the field.
I understand that, but that was also because he was taking all of the shots.
For sure.
They were grinding it.
For sure.
Last year, Iggy was healthy last year, right? And Iggy guarded LeBron last year, right? LeBron averaged a 34-point triple-double on 55%
it's not the totality,
shooting.
Nick. It's those 5 to 8 minutes where I get a break. It's
Yes.
also where you go 1 through 5, all the switching. And also, let's not forget, their best defender, Clay. Man, we could put Iggy on a guy. If a guy gets hot, we can put Iggy on him compared to having Clay run around him with that bad leg, especially if the series is extended.
LeBron is a heavyweight fighter fighting against a different guy in round 1, then round 2 a different guy, then round 3.
Like that
then they would come
Jr.
back.
movie.
I mean, that's like, this is impossible for him. This is LeBron James. If Iggy is there, like I said, I'm certain the Cavs are going to win 3 if Iggy doesn't play. But I think that he brings so much to the table offensively and defensively.
Can I ask you a question about the off? I agree with. Listen, he's a great defender.
IQ.
What does he bring to the table offensively?
IQ, and he can make a shot.
He can't make a shot.
No, you can't. Whoa. Don't say can't.
Yeah.
Can he make a 3 better than Kayvon Looney and JaVale McGee?
Well,
He's definitely a better offensive. He's
sure.
a better offensive player than all the players they're using as subs and replacements.
No question.
Would you agree to that?
I don't know that he's a better offensive player than Livingston.
What's your
I know
issue
that he's a better.
Yeah, man. Come on. Did he stiff arm you? Like, get
What's
off me.
your issue?
Man, I watched Iggy. Hold on, real quick. I watched
you asked
Iggy
for an
all
autograph,
year
and he was like,
shoot
nah,
less than 30% from 3. Like
Sean Livingston won't even attempt
shoot
the
threes.
threes.
I understand that part of it.
So there's
that's
no
why I said
spacing with him.
I said he's a better floor spacer than Livingston. I don't know that he's been an offensive player. I actually, of all the players on the Warriors, the two guys I like the most individually are Clay and Iguodala. I have no.
Don't sound like it.
Well,
because
but he hates the rest of them.
No,
So much.
that's not it. You can like a guy and think his play is overrated or his value's overrated.
Yeah.
I think Iguodala has become, for some reason, because of that 2015 finals, where, again, he won the MVP, scoring 16 points a game when the guy he was covering scored 36 a game. It has become this legend of, he's the guy that slows down LeBron.
I thought you were a stat guy. Like, you know the net rating of the Hamptons 5. That is it is insane. So why don't you just, forget whether you like him, overrated, finals MVP. Just look at the net rating. They're like a plus 27 per 48.
Right.
Like, they are unstoppable.
Can you tell me real quick, what's the net rating of those four guys with any other person? Because that's the point that I'm making.
Not as good. Not as good. Not a plus 27.
Not quite as good.
No.
But Steph, KD, Clay, Draymond, and any sentient human being is an amazing lineup, has an amazing net rating. We know that. And also, what is the other reason? Sometimes I am a stat guy, but we also have to look at the context of it. What's another reason that net rating tends to be as high as it is? Because they deploy that lineup in critical situations. There's a reason they had waited 2 full years to ever start that lineup.
Sure.
And when that lineup's on the court, that is when the Warriors almost always are fully engaged. And the Warriors, when fully engaged, is Steph, KD, and Clay are on the court.
Yeah, but you can't when they try the hardest, they're the best. But when he's on there, when he's playing, the results are what they are. It's another body to throw at LeBron. It allows KD to get a few possessions off. It allows Draymond to get a few possessions off. He allows other people to be their best. If you don't want to listen to me, that's cool. Ron Adams, well-respected guy. The first thing they said after Game 1, we were shell-shocked at the pace that the Cavs are playing at and what LeBron brought, and we miss Iggy. So don't trust me, trust Ron Adams.
Listen, I understand that the Warriors, if they lose or they didn't even lose, if they almost lose, they like to assign it to, Andrew Bogut got hurt. Or, if Draymond was there, LeBron
You don't believe that?
Hold on. No, I don't believe that. If Draymond was there, LeBron wouldn't have scored 41. And then the next game, Draymond's there and LeBron scores 41. The Warriors, I've just never quite seen it. A team this talented who, if their fifth best guy isn't there, it's like, I don't know what the hell we do.
No, it's not.
I don't know what we do.
Not what the hell we're going to do. They obviously adjusted and they figured it out, but you're adding a guy who is a perfect fit for that team. Remember, when they get a deflection and they run, who's the guy always finishing the break? Then also, he could space the floor, and then it's not even his shooting. It's his IQ and his decision-making that whether I should shoot this or not, or skip it, or drive and kick, all that brings those 4 players who are already amazing to a whole nother level.
Also, the trust level. Those
No
4
question.
players, they trust Iggy more. And you've been here 2 days. I got a lot of trust for you, bro. Way to give it to him.
Guys,
nice.
if this was a podcast, I'd rewind and listen to it again.
Thank you,
This
John.
was the most fun last 8 minutes I've had in a long time.
We
Just
don't make money on
listening
them
to you guys
podcasts,
all
do
go
we?
on.
Am I doing a podcast?
Never mind.
This show
It is a
podcast.
we are on a podcast.
Yeah, but am I doing an individual one? Do we get paid for that?